I've been working with Nick Rose and others from Sustain, the Australian Food Network, for the past couple of years now, on all things to do with urban agriculture and local food. And we are talking to you tonight with Pam Warhurst from Incredible Edible. And we're going to talk to Pam about her inspirational story about how a group of friends with a dream came together to transform unloved public spaces into food growing places. This began about 13 years ago, and there's now, I believe, over 120 Incredible Edible groups in the UK and over 700 worldwide that form a big network. So Pam is the chair of Incredible Edible, and she's been an activist and advisor for nearly 50 years. She's been involved in local politics and national policy as the chair of the board of the Forestry Commission. And 13 years ago, I should say, Pam co-founded Incredible Edible with a vision to build kinder, more confident and connected communities through food. Beginning in Todmorden in Northern England, as I said, there's now close to 1,000 groups across the UK and worldwide. So we have a chat function available to you all this evening, so please get involved in that and enjoy the conversation on that one. And there's also a Q&A section down the bottom there. So if you've got any questions you'd like to ask, please pop them into the Q&A, and we'll do our best to address them as we go along. So welcome, Pam. Lovely to have you here. I thought we might start. It's a very great pleasure for us to have you here as well. I thought a nice thing to start with would be for you to share with us your favourite or most inspiring Incredible Edible memory that you have over the 13 years that you've been in operation. What's your favourite story to tell everybody?
Well, it's probably going back right to the beginning of Incredible Edible. And it was one of those moments, light bulb moments really, when you thought, might be onto something here. Which was going back when I was still doing a lot of work with the local Tottenham group. You know, we set it up. I can tell you the story about that, or you probably know it. But anyway, we set that up, and one of the sites, the propaganda gardens that we started because we wanted people to talk about space and place and food and themselves and, just see space differently, was in front of Mary, who I set Incredible Edible Tottenham up with. Yeah. Her front garden, and her front garden is on a street, and I tell this story all the time, but it's the absolute truth. We whipped out all the stuff that you couldn't eat, and we stuck in stuff that you could eat. Now normally we don't do that in private gardens because people tend to take offence. We normally do it in public spaces, but because it was Mary's, we did it in hers. And her garden is on a street that leads up to one of the estates where folks of a whole range of backgrounds live. Now, because nobody in England automatically jumps over walls and starts picking other people's vegetables, it took a good while and many pictures and postcards and signs saying help yourself to get people to do that. And eventually, it was kind of like 18 months into it, a mum and her two kids who were walking back from school stopped, went over the little wall, picked some veg and some herbs, disappeared. We saw them doing that. That was great.
Amazing.
And then later in the day, the kids came back with the outer bits of the cabbage and whatever else they'd picked, and they stuck it in the compost bin that Mary had in her front garden, which was equally great. So the school had been doing the right thing. But the really important thing was the following morning on Mary's doorstep was a bowl of soup made from the veg and the herbs picked by a complete stranger from Mary's garden. And at that point, and it makes me go cold now, and I want to cry because it's the truth. At that point, I knew how food connects us, and I knew the possibility of building kindness through food. So for me, that was a biggie that will always stay with me.
That's wonderful. And that is so true, isn't it? That's how food can really bring people together, isn't it? That is just a wonderful memory.
It's small actions. It's that we've all got it in us, to be magnificent. We just need the opportunity
Yes.
to demonstrate what we can do.
So true. So true, Pam. Oh, that's a wonderful memory. Thanks for sharing about that. So perhaps maybe, I think there's probably a few people here that don't know about the full story about how Incredible Edible started. Perhaps you can tell us a bit about the inspiration behind what got you and Mary making this all happen. What really started that for you guys?
It was, I mean, for me, it's climate change. You know, I have lived through people making promises from the Rio Earth Summit, through Kyoto, through Copenhagen, through, you know, I've lived through all that stuff, knowing increasingly about the threats that are going to impact some of the most challenged communities that there are on the planet. And I've seen the complete lack of leadership up to press. We've kind of got the story. It's a little late, but we've kind of got the story now. But up to press 13 years ago, I was just beside myself with the lack of anything happening that demonstrated we could live our lives differently and think about people that we're never, ever going to meet, but that we need to be compassionate towards and we need to be thinking about. So it was one of those moments where I was in a conference, people were talking about climate change, and I just thought, I've had enough of this. What are we going to do about this? You know, well, why don't we stop moaning and whinging and passing the buck, and why don't we see what we can do ourselves? So it was just one of those light bulb moments, got on a train, made the entire thing up, created a model, went to Mary's, sat at the kitchen table, said, Mary, we're going to have to do something about this. Let's use food to bring us together. Let's find a way that we can demonstrate what we can do to change our towns, our cities, our relationships, and what we want out of life, so that we can point to the stuff we're doing and say to the people that we elect, isn't it about time you did something about that? So that was, but you can't do that when you write a book or you write a report or you've got a strategy document or what the SAML you've got, because we're bored to death with that. That's been happening for a long time. So it was just about demonstrating what we, the people in the place we call home, could do to say, we can do it differently. We can learn skills, we can share food, we can bring people together that have never spoken to each other because we all eat, or we buy, or we grow, or we cook, or we wonder what the heck that is growing in the ground. Whatever. Food is the thing that brings us together. So that was the thing. It was to say, we the people can be trusted to build a kind of world. And we're going to demonstrate that through food.
That's just wonderful. So just a little bit then about how you guys did demonstrate that. What were your first moves? How did you do it? Did you go and throw a bunch of lettuce seeds in front of the post office, or what was the going?
First off, we make it up as we go along. Second off, we don't ask permission to start doing these things. And third off, we don't wait for a check to drop through the letterbox, because that doesn't, forget it. People, we've got into a mindset that says somebody has to allow us to do it in order to build a kind of world, and we can't do it unless we've got a lottery bid, or we can't do it, and all that, which is rubbish, because we're not trying to take over the world for our own benefits. We're trying to offer our gifts and realize our potential to offer it to our communities and show that we can do things differently. So what did we do? Well, it's straightforward, really. I mean, knowing that we didn't need all that, and we'd all got seeds in our bottom drawers that we hadn't managed to plant because there's only so many radishes you can put on a plot at any one time, or whatever. We had a meeting in a cafe because my daughter actually had a cafe, and it's about food, so why wouldn't we do it in a cafe? And we put some posters up, and it wasn't all highfalutin. Do we care about sustainability, and don't we think we've been let down with Kyoto? No. We said, should we build a better life for our kids? Shall we see some jobs in it around food? Shall we see what we can do together in our town, in Todmorden? And 60 people turned up. It was just like, who knew?
Amazing.
And the truth is, the world's ready for this, and it was ready 13 years ago, and it's even more ready now for just rolling up your sleeves and get on and do stuff. So we used the seeds in our bottom drawer. We told our stories, because this is all about storytelling, because it's about self-belief. We're growing self-belief as well as food. It's about going to places that were horrible, like there was a dog toilet along the main road. It was a verge. The council technically owned it, but of course they didn't, because it's land, and how can you you know, it's public land. So we put our gloves on, we cleaned up the dog mess, we cleaned up the litter, we planted some herbs, very elementary stuff, nothing fancy. But it looked a lot better. And it said food, and it had posters all over it saying food to share, because this was about not me and mine, but us and ours. And of course, the interesting stuff is when you're brave enough to do that, you know, and maybe I've been around a few blocks that said, what they're going to do is shoot me. They don't want to do that, are they? What happens is within 9 months, the council put a bench on there so that people can enjoy it. We never asked them to do that. There is good people everywhere. They just need to have the key to undo a different system, because it's the system that stinks, not the people. So that's what we did. We told our stories. That was picked up by the media. A local reporter wrote something, then a regional reporter wrote something, and then a national television programme gave us Hugh Fernley-Whittinstall to come and say, isn't it great, let's plant some stuff, because we were doing stuff like growing food in vacant cemeteries and weird things like that. And it makes good press. But the bottom line was, you know, the world was ready for it. They wanted a different story. And that's all Incredible Edible has been. Bit of like the blue touch paper, see what happens.
Yeah, and I love that about what you guys have done. And what change have you seen over the years with regards to policy and the way that, you know, local government and higher up, you know, other levels of government as well, how they have dealt with your approach and you know, have they changed their policy because of the work you guys have done?
It's a really slow burn. You know, turkeys don't vote for Christmas. So people in positions of authority find it quite difficult. They're not bad people. They're just in a system that has key performance indicators that aren't the ones that I think are important, because you can't eat money. What we need to do is measure things in a different way. Anyway, we can get to that. But yeah, I mean, what's happened is by just getting on with the model, and the model has 3 aspects to it. It says, plant food wherever you can. So the spaces of your life, your high street, your college, your school, your doctors, wherever you can, looks different, tastes different, starts different conversations. Share with how to do that, and help people cook the blooming stuff, because people don't know how to cook, so why would they bother growing? And then support, if you've got any money in your pocket, local businesses, because that could be our future. That will be the future of your children. Local supply chains, reduced food miles, you know, street entrepreneurship around food, whatever it might be, that when the proverbial hits the fan, which it is doing increasingly, we are stronger, we are more connected, and we know how to nurture our communities. So, so what we've seen in the 150 groups that I mean, pre-COVID, and we don't have statisticians in cupboards, by the way, so I've got absolutely no idea, you know, on the exact details with some of these things. I've got, you know, this is the amount of hours we've put in nationally, and this is the kind of like number of allotments we've created or public spaces we've done. But it's all, there's a lot that's anecdotal, to be honest, but the buzz is there. If you go to Bristol, if you go to an island off Scotland and Bute, if you go to Lambeth, if you go to the wilds of Devon, you're all over the place. Groups are springing up, being Incredible Edible, which is, we're taking back power in a really small way as our gift to our communities. So we've started to see cities looking differently, villages looking differently. We've seen food growing in the heart of our places when it wasn't before. We've seen local authorities that are visionary really support this. What can we do to help you? We've seen local authorities that aren't visionary finding it really quite difficult to work out why they're not being asked permission all the time for these things. We've seen landscape bodies, national advisors saying this should be normal. We've seen health professionals start to embrace what we're doing as part of a health culture, because fundamentally what COVID has taught us is we need to improve the population health of everybody, and we can all be a little bit of that. This isn't about popping pills and going to the doctors all the time. This is about being more active, feeling a part of a community, nurturing your body with local food, and just having a greater sense of well-being. Now, this is common sense. We know this, and it should be mainstream health. But quite frankly, it's not yet. But what's happening is, you know, those hospital trusts that hear about us, that want to do something, say, can you come in here? Can you show us? And we say, yeah, but we've not just invented another tier of government here. This is about what you're doing, not what we're doing. You know, so we're now trying to talk to executive boards in hospitals to say, you really should mainstream growing food around your hospitals, not a raised bed at the end of a tunnel that nobody looks after. You really should build community kitchens in your hospitals, because that's the heart of good health. And you should bend your procurement budgets. And they are starting to do that, you know, and the terrible trump card that we have of COVID change, of climate change, is going to make more people ready to think outside the box about how they create kind, confident and connected communities. And all they're doing is involving themselves with food. That's all there is. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, and I love that your work, Pam, and you know, since the first conversation we ever had, you know, and we only just spoke at the start before we brought everyone in for the webinar about statistics. You know, one of the guys was asking about how many groups in Australia, and you're like, don't ask me about statistics, and you've just mentioned it again. Then, you know, you've never been about numbers and statistics and all the rest of it, because sort of that's what the big machine wants to get from us all, isn't it? But you still managed to make these incredible changes and the work of Incredible Edible and all these groups sort of evolving. You know, there's still all this incredible change that's happening outside of what is normal by our standard societal sort of standards, I guess. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Like, why do you think that is? I know we've had a couple of conversations about it in the past, that, you know, and you keep saying people are ready for it, but could you maybe expand on that a bit more for everybody?
Yeah.
About why people are so happy to let go of the statistics, but run with the...
No, I mean, I get all that. I get all that, but we've kind of been taught that we need to be able to do everything and know everything if we're going to make any case, and we don't. We need to understand what our gifts are and articulate them, and then challenge other people to come and help us. What gifts have you got? How can you help me do this? How can I? And it always works. It always works, because people are ready for change. So that lady with her 2 kids, who were the very first ones to pick the stuff and then return the bowl of soup, she was ready for change. She didn't have a big conversation with me about climate change and isn't it awful about Rio. No, she just gave us stuff about, you know, local food and feeding her kids, right? When the earthquake happened in New Zealand, one of the people that they came over to visit, because disaster, a lot close to home for you, was Incredible Edible. Why? Because when you've no money, how do you bring back hope? When the system that you thought was normal, as you walked up and down streets and you got great big buildings and all these, when all that went wrong, how do you say to people there is a future, we can come together on this? Well, they use, you know, putting artwork and food in vacant lots. Totally and utterly fantastic. They saw that. When we start to speak to these hospitals, they understand that there isn't enough money in the world for the sort of ill health that we are creating through the way that we live our lives. And therefore they are ready to say, in a way that they weren't when they were flush with money, is there another way to do this? Can we harness the power of small actions with people and actually produce a healthier society, a more connected society, a more confident society? So there's been a lot of things that have been happening. There's been the climate change. There's been the lack of funds to do stuff. There's been a realization increasingly by people who make big decisions in our lives that the way we used to do things isn't working. It's not bringing people together. It's not making, you know, the most challenged in our society healthier. It's not helping us understand the need for us to support each other across geographical boundaries, that we are one planet. None of these things are helping us. So in a small way, and it's just a small way, because it's just a piece of a jigsaw that makes a kinder world, but that piece of the jigsaw matters, and we all have a piece of that, and we just need to be confident enough to put it in the picture and say, might only be one piece, but it's not a jigsaw picture without us. So I see these things happening all the time. And increasingly, you know, I am a bore, because I'm an economist. And I say that with complete, I'm not keen on economists. You know, but what I know is we are stuck with a system that measures money and that values, you know, what we do with that money and how far we can stretch that money as the be all and end all in measuring what good looks like. Well, we've learned now, haven't we, from the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and from the OECD's, you know, indices of well-being and from happiness indices and 1,001 other things. There's a heck of a lot of people out there waking up, smelling the coffee and saying, we're not measuring what good looks like, what it feels like, how we can wake up in the morning. And this is perverse, given that we know what are the elements that makes, you know, that helps people live to 100 in these blue zones. A sense of connectivity with the community, being active and eating well. We know these things. We've known them for donkey's years. So for me, we've got to start measuring in a different way. But quite frankly, we've also got to demystify these alternative metrics, which quite frankly, for somebody on the ground, are far too confusing. I just want some simple metrics that say, you know, we are creating kind of communities who are healthier, who are better connected, and who understand they're one species of many. You know, we've not touched biodiversity, but we are one species of many on this planet. And we've got to start acting with a bit more respect towards those other species, without which we're not going to responsibility. Yeah.
So true. So true, Pam. Yeah. I love hearing you speak about all these things. And so you've always been about big systems change and you know, that whole sort of transition of how we live in our life, as you've just been explaining to everybody. Tell me, what are you focusing on right now? What are your goals and your sort of big picture work that you're doing right now?
Well, just as right back 13 years ago, we started with propaganda gardening, which is guerrilla gardening by any other name, but yeah. So we started with that. Why? Because you have to start with what you can get your hands on, not worry about what you can't touch. You're never going to change the world by worrying about things you're never going to change, but you can change the things that you can touch. So what I'm interested in now, and I can only speak for the UK, you know, because everybody has different systems, although I'd love to know more about what you guys are doing over there in Australia. So for me, in the UK, we have public realm, okay? So public realm is that land in towns and cities and around that is stewarded by public bodies, whether that is local authorities or health bodies or the prison service. But for me, it's got that word public in front of it, which means to say, ultimately, it's our land. You know, it's our taxes that pay for that, right? Now, if there was a wizzo idea going on with this public realm that helped all our people, wherever they live, whatever their income, their age, their culture, or their ability, live better, I'd shut up. I'd say, well, that's blooming fantastic. Let's just carry on. But it's not. It's overgrown, it's unloved, it's not managed, and it's not helping us in any which way and form live differently into the future. So my thing at the moment is we need to try and establish credibility around the idea of a community right to community land, to grow food on, to do something with respect to food. I'm not just going to say growing. You might want a community kitchen, you might want, I mean, you know, but to make local decisions around local public realm, around local food supply. That's what I think is important. And in order to do that, because I've been a local authority leader and advised the government and all the rest of it, of course I know how to think. So we need to create credibility ourselves at the grassroots, over and beyond our passion, that says, you can trust us, you know, we're going to do this right. And we're going to get better outcomes for our communities than this top-down decision-making that we have at the moment. So I'm passionate about working with a local authority, because they're the ones on the whole that oversee public land, one that's ready for change, and inspiring the citizens of that place to believe in their ability and to have the knowledge to manage that public realm for food growing or food processing or whatever. That's what I'm on about at the moment, because actually, in a very short period of time, and you know, the world is waking up. I've just seen that the UK has now signed up to 78% reduction in carbon by 35. That's a big leap. And without the people, they can't do it. And how do the people become engaged? They have access to land, they grow food, they process it, they create jobs, they learn skills, they pass it on to the next generation. So that's what I'm passionate about at the moment. Not because it's not important to have all manner of food banks and all that, but that's sticking plaster. You know, we cannot continually go with begging bowls to people in power and say, would you mind helping us?
Yeah.
We need to have our own territories, and we need to have confidence that we can do it for ourselves. And what you're doing in Australia and what's happening all over the world is demonstrating that people are ready to take on that trust.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, definitely. And I guess that sort of leads into, you know, you and I were having a conversation a few weeks ago about, and you were saying that there needs to be more conscious design around urban agriculture with our local authorities and people in that. Can you tell me a bit more about how that is being experienced by you guys in the UK?
I mean, so I'm a big fan of a body called the Landscape Institute in the UK. And for me, we need to change the frameworks of people's lives so it's easier for everybody to do this. It's fine if you're an old woman who's been around around a lot of blocks and, you know, it kind of understands how systems work. But if you're a young mum and dad or whatever, and you don't really, how do you start? Well, why couldn't we normalise things? Why couldn't we make sure that when we design our towns, our villages, our cities, our neighbourhoods, our boroughs or whatever, we design it with food at its heart? Why can't we start to walk from the very centre of our settlements? We see food growing. We can access food. It's not something that happens out there with a bunch of people that we don't know. It happens here. So that we inspire the next generation of urban farmers. And we create that bridge between urban farming and traditional farming, so that we start to respect people that are producing good quality food, where the animals or whatever the food is respected. So we're not poisoning the earth in order to get it. All these things. We can design that into our settlements, and increasingly we need to do so. And what is interesting again, God, it drives me bonkers, is that this has been going on since, I can't even begin to tell you. So in the UK, I work with a wonderful chap who's the policy director of the Town and Country Planning Association, which is a long-established charity in the UK, who ages ago, I mean, I don't even know when in 18-something or other, this guy called Ebenezer Howard, who folks out there will know him, created the Garden City movement. The Garden City movement said we need people to be able to have good homes with green spaces around them and the ability to grow food. Right on the doorstep. Yep. That's what it was about, right? Perfect. So what's happened to that idea? It's become very middle class. Well, actually, this was not a middle class concept. This was a right for citizens to have good homes and access to good food and land. So I take heart in the fact that this has been happening, but we've kind of got to roll up our sleeves and say, this isn't for an ancient tome on a shelf that reminds of how things were. This is an absolute fundamental need over the next 10 years that we need to re-establish across our communities. And UK will not be the place that leads on this. You know, but we are going to continue.
You mentioned to me again in a recent conversation about the importance of collaboration for us all to become that shining star that sort of pushes the everything that you're speaking about tonight forward, and those agendas forward in everybody's lives, not just where you are, not just where I am, but across the planet. Can you speak a bit more to that, about that, the importance of that collaboration?
It's just so important for all sorts of reasons. I see it as a global orchestra. Okay, that's what I see it as, which is, so an orchestra creates beautiful sound, right? It doesn't mean that the cellist and the triangle player and the whatever stop being what they are. They are what they are. They know what they know. But together, they create something even more beautiful. And that is what we need to do. We don't need to be frightened that our brand is going to go down the toilet or what. No. This is such a hard ask that we are talking about, to shift the way we live our lives in a very short period of time, to shift and influence the power structures so that they see that this really matters, that we are not on an ego trip, but that we are trying to invest in a different future, and that we're perfectly ordinary people that are doing this. We just give us stuff about our families, our communities, and people we will never meet. So that is why collaboration matters, because we have to create a critical mass around value. This is about value-driven policies. And we start with food. I'm not saying it's the only thing. You could have the conversation about energy. You could have the conversation, but food is the universal language. That's why we do food. And we absolutely have got to stop doing our own thing, which at a local level in the UK, for example, there's great organisations, all manner of them doing all sorts of stuff, but they're all competing for the same book from the National Lottery. What's the point in that? It's absolutely ridiculous. So somewhere or other, we've got to stop making this a competition and start making this a collaboration around critical mass. And somewhere or other, we've got to start to say, okay, we don't start with the need for money, but actually this new way of living does need to be financed. And we need to find people who understand and believe in us so that we can start to demonstrate at mass that this is doable wherever you are on the planet. And this produces better long-term outcomes for people and planet. So for me, I am absolutely, it's just a no-brainer that we need to collaborate and yet not lose our identity, because I'm not naive about that. So whatever you're doing, I'm about to pinch. No, I'm not really.
No, I love that, because I totally agree with you, Pam. I think it's only by everybody working together that we're going to really make some even greater inroads on what's already being achieved and bring more people.
And Naomi, the bottom line is, with us being global and with the climate change happening, obviously, we know that we're going to get warmer. So therefore, what would be really great for growing food is to understand what grows in climates that are going to be what we are. So we need to understand that. We need to, we need to understand that there are going to be some places where soil's going to be so degraded, it's going to be difficult to feed people. So what are we doing about hydroponics? What are we doing about aquaponics? What are we doing about alternative ways of growing? Are we giving people a complete palette of knowledge and skills that they can nurture their communities with healthily? Yes. Because there's some awful stuff put in some of that stuff. So let's why does the devil have the best? Let's take some of that back and say, how do we imbue that with what really matters, which is the nurturing side of what we're doing, but make it possible for people who haven't got access to some of the benefits that we've got to actually look after their own communities. And that is happening all over the place. And it's very much something that a lot of young people are fascinated by. And we need more young people leading the way in this. You don't need old people like me doing this. We need young people picking up that baton and going for it. Because this is last stage. This is it. Let's just go for it. Because there's not another rerun somewhere in 10 years' time. No. Things are getting serious now, aren't they? Very much so. No, look, I'd just like to mention to the audience here, if you'd like to pop any questions either into the chat or into the Q&A, we were going to have a bit of a 15-minute sort of session here where you all can ask questions directly to Pam.
you'd like to pop something in there. Otherwise, Pam and I will continue having a lengthy conversation because we're quite good at doing that. And
never been short of words.
No, we've never been short of words before, have we? But whilst the audience are having a look at that, I thought maybe we could have a quick look at your incredible edibles spinning plates. If you could maybe explain that concept to the audience just briefly, Pam, while we wait for some questions to pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. So when this was made up, and it was literally made up in a 2-hour session on a train from London to Manchester, which is my closest railway station. It was obvious that if I actually wanted this to be something that could work for everybody, there needed to be an angle in it for everybody. So first of all, we needed to grow food where it wasn't growing to start the conversation, right in the middle of our urban centres. In unloved corners, on main streets, in front of doctors, in front of colleges. It didn't matter where it was. As long as you could see it, you walked past it and you thought, oh, what is that? And you started that conversation. That was one thing. But the second place is learning, because people don't know how to do that. People, in my town don't know how to peel a potato. They've done instant for so long. They've done microwave for so long that basic skill set that would be, previous generations would be normal. No, it's not there. But rather than then go and ask somebody else, can we have a qualification? Who do we know in our communities who know how to grow, who know how to cook, who know how to process and bottle and graft a tree or whatever? And they're there. And they're increasingly there as we welcome people from different shores. Yeah, absolutely. I work in a doctor's surgery. No, I don't. What am I saying? I work in the grounds of a doctor's surgery because the doctor has said, come and make our surgery edible. And this is in a place in Halifax, which is about a large town, about 190,000 people, something like that. So we work in his surgery because he's visionary and he sees that health isn't helping people at the moment. It's popping pills. It's not helping the population. So we're working in this very mixed community. And this is community of Kashmiris, of Somalis, of people from all manner, Italians, you name it, they're all there. And they've been really challenged with COVID. But what is really great is that increasingly people who come from different shores have skill sets that we couldn't imagine, particularly if it was growing in drought or whatever else it might be. So we're starting to share at a grassroots level those skills. I never forget visiting a place, a big place around here, a big ex-mining community, talking to them. It was Potato Day, actually, which has always made me laugh, quite frankly. But anyway, so on Potato Day, we rack up. And who are the people that actually know how to grow tomatoes and potatoes and all the rest? The ex-miners, because that's what they did when they came from, the bowels of the earth. They grew food. Now, who's ever talked to them about that? Nobody around there was talking to them about that. So they were great. And then the third plate is we have to create local income streams for the next generation in this. They have to see that this idea that if you grow, you must be thick. If you're a farmer, you're not very entrepreneurial. No, these are absolutely fundamental key jobs for the future. And we should be celebrating our next generation of farmers and food entrepreneurs. So that's the third plate. Spend money, if you've got it, in your local community, on local food, because this is the economist bit. Funnily enough, if you create the demand, the supply will follow. And if you start to buy more local free-range eggs, then the local free-range egg person will produce more local free-range eggs from his head, whatever. It's not, none of that. So that's the three plates. Community growing, learning, and business. Together, building up something from the grassroots that's like a vortex of resilience and strength. That's what it was about.
Yes.
Not rocket.
No, it's not rocket science, is it? No, definitely not. We haven't had any questions come through from the audience yet, Pam, but we do have a couple saying that they love your enthusiasm. Hang on, no, we did just have one rock up. Oh, here we go. What's your best advice in meeting objections from council risk departments? She founded Food is Free Laneway in Ballarat 6 years ago. And whilst they've had most of council departments on board, which is wonderful, so much so they gave us more land to plant on, run workshops and engage disadvantaged community members. We sometimes get hiccups with risk issues. Love your passion, Pam. Saw you on TED Talk years ago. And you were one of the humans who inspired me to starting Food is Free in Australia. Fabulous. So what advice can you give Lou there on dealing with different council departments and their risk management?
They're a flipping nightmare, aren't they? God. They are a nightmare. And sometimes, if they are the dominant voice, then that's not the local authority that's going to lead the charge, you know. But let me give you an example. And if you ever want to rope me into anything, then rope me in for what it's worth. Because we've been doing this for a long time and we haven't killed anybody yet. That is always a good line to remember. But what was interesting is I did one of these talks a couple of weeks ago. And one of the people in the audience was from a group I didn't know we had in mid-Wales, in Portmaddock. Yeah. And she asked me on the chat, hey, Pam, could you come and talk in Portmaddock? To which I said, well, I was doing things. Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, absolutely fine. I thought I was talking to her local group. It turns out I was talking to the local authority. I hadn't realised that, but anyway, there I was. So I had a chat with the local authority and she was there as well. And I just kept saying, these are all over the place. This is response to climate change. This is about public realm and our gifts. We're not asking you to do anything. And every single member of her group, you know, had a high-vis jacket and they had public liability insurance. And I could guarantee we hadn't killed anybody in any of our groups so far. And the woman who was in charge of, she wasn't the risk assessment woman, but she was in charge of car parks, bless her, who'd said, it's our car park, you can't do this on our car park. Then said, oh, well, I've only been in this job a short period of time, and you have been doing it for a while, so I don't suppose we can do anything about it, right? And what that said was, this woman wants to say yes, but she's in a system that says no. Yeah? So sometimes it's really quite difficult, but if you've got the vis jackets and if you've got the insurance and if you've got, you know, access to the international website that says, honestly, we've not chopped anybody's feet off, we've not poisoned anybody and nobody's been, you know, concussed because of a falling apple. They have to be quite hard to do something. And I think increasingly, as we start to measure well-being, mental health and stuff like that, and you've got that wealth of knowledge that says all this stuff helps, then those barriers, that dominance of that risk aversion in local government will start to go to where it needs to be, which is in a more proportionate place than stopping you doing things.
Yeah,
I'd love to talk about this.
Wonderful.
Can I ask a question?
Wonderful. Oh, sorry, we've got Nick's just popped up here.
Yeah, I would have typed it in, but as a kind of like a host, I can't use the Q&A, so I just thought I'd just ask it. I don't know if you know Social Farms and Gardens, Pam.
Chris,
Chris is one of our keynote speakers for our Urban Agriculture Forum on Thursday this week.
Right.
What do you think of the idea of, I think they call it social prescribing, and it's in the NHS now, and in terms of, I guess, you know, really kind of making this massive and getting critical mass as you've been talking. Do you see that's a good, you know, is there positive possibilities in that path with the NHS?
Absolutely.
Wanting to kind of really resource community gardens and social farms and prescribe people to get well through relating to animals and plants rather than getting pharmaceuticals. Do you have things to say about that?
I think it's great. I think it's a great first step. I think it's been a long time in coming. I mean, we've been talking about social prescribing for an awful long time. It's absolutely great, and there is a really good relationship with the social farm movement and what it's doing, and the more that doctors can bend their prescribing budgets, as it were, to that, the better. I would have to say we need to push harder, right? Because what I would say is, okay, let me see. So doctors are going to start prescribing socially. Fantastic. Are you paying the people? Every person that you know. Are you paying pharmaceuticals, or do you say, are your pills for free? No, of course you don't. So you pay for your pills, but you don't pay for your social prescribing. How can that be right? Now, if they are breaking through that mold by funding what Chris is doing through social farms and gardens, then that is fantastic. But I know a lot of people who are being redirected to community growing groups by doctors, but those groups aren't getting anything from health in the same way that pharmaceutical companies are getting stuff from health. That cannot be right. So it's a little bit timid at the moment, is what I'd say, but it's absolutely on the right track. And if they really wanted to do it, then they would absolutely design their hospitals and health centres with land around them that people, patients, staff, whoever could actually grow food on, and demonstrate that they know that this is a health service, not an illness service. They have a long way to go. They've got to get out of their comfort box. They've got to bend their budgets, and they've got to give them to ordinary folks who are doing wonderful things across the piece with a number of organisations and creating that, you know, sense of well-being. But step in the right direction, but they need to be a bit more ballsy about it, would be my view.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. No, thanks for sharing that, Pam, because, yeah, that's something that's been a question for many of us for quite a while. We've also got another question here from Georgia. She'd love to hear of any ways that you have handled building equity into your mindset for those who are struggling to pay for local food or find the time to engage with the community.
Yeah, it's a long, I mean, again, so we're all volunteers. I don't have a team of paid people doing stuff. I mean, I'd quite like a few paid people doing stuff, quite frankly, because it's quite difficult. But at the moment, I don't. But how are we building equity? Well, if we work from the facts that if people knew how to grow more of their own food, and if they had access to more land to do it, that they, you know, could get, not because they were rich and they bought it, but because it was their local public realm, then that would start to build equity in terms of people's ability to do that. Now, that is complicated, because if you're also a single person and you keep trying to hold down 2 jobs, what time in the day have you got to actually go out there and do growing? I mean, some would find respite in that, but for others, it's just too difficult.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, what we are trying to do is to encourage more people to create social enterprises around food, so that they can start to think of the creation of income streams around that, which can employ more local people. So instead of doing a job that doesn't have anything to do that, you could create a job that was about really the important work of producing food, processing food, or whatever else it might be. We are thinking as well about, and I've thought long and hard about this, but, you know, what we're trying to do is work in a system that's not using the tools that are the right tools. So it's quite difficult, and it takes quite a while. But I would like to use our credit union, say, and I would like for those that have got any money to be able to put money in a column in that credit union balance account that said Incredible Edible Investment Fund. And then anybody could then borrow money against that Incredible Edible, because credit unions are great. I mean, you know, they require just the will to make small investments. They don't just, it's not just about rich people, but they could then borrow back the money to build the raised beds or do whatever else they want. So these are small ways that we could tweak what's already there to make sure it's inclusive. But the more people that support local supply chains, which is going to have to happen because we're not going to be flying stuff all over the planet very much longer, then the more we start to bring down the costs of local food, which can be elitist at times. If you're on a farmer's market, you can't always afford that whacking great expense of that piece of cheese. But if more people were supported in local supply chains and processing and production and growing, that would bring the cost down, and that would be more inclusive, and that would create a more level playing field. So, you know, these are building blocks. That's why I say we all have a piece of the action here. The people in the city governments need to start thinking about their investment programs. The people in health institutions need to think about their investment programs. And we're just going to be here to say, not only are we going to do this growing because it's important, we're just going to keep reminding you that you have a lever you can pull, and you could make this so much easier for everybody to live well in hard times, whatever your budget is. So it's not an absolute answer to your question, but it's, I hope it gives some clarity around there are several things that need to be brought together.
Yeah, no, I think Georgia will be very happy with that, Pam. I think it's wonderful. We're basically getting near time here. And I think if I ask you one more question, we'll go well over time. So we might just start to bring things to an end. Pam, you're a real inspiration to so many of us in the urban agriculture space. And I really, really thank you for your time tonight. I can see by the comments in the chat from various people that, you know, the last one so far is that you're a hero. Thanks, Pam. People totally agreeing with you and your passion for what you do, and we really appreciate you sharing with us tonight. I'd also like to just on a personal note mention to everybody, I lost my dear grandmother today, and I'd like to dedicate this session to her because she was my inspiration for all of my love for gardening, and both her and my grandfather for growing food and being very active community members and being involved. And I think it's just lovely to be able to share this conversation with you this evening on the eve of her passing. And it's really, really lovely to do that. Please, does anybody else have any further questions at all they'd like to ask before we hand over to Julia this evening to just let you know about a few other things happening with our Urban Agriculture Month? Please pop them through. Otherwise, I'd like to just finish off with my sincere thanks to you, Pam, for joining us this evening. It's been another wonderful conversation with you, and I look forward to so many more. And when I finally get to travel again for my Churchill Fellowship, I really look forward to giving you a gigantic bear hug when I arrive in Todmorden and get to come and see all of the wonderful work you've done firsthand. Likewise, I hope that maybe you might be able to make it out this way and we can show you what us Aussies down under have been up to too, because we too have a very active urban agriculture space, and we'd love to share that back with you as well. There's a bunch of people in the chat saying thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Coming this evening.
Can I just say, don't let this be the last time that all of us connect. You know,
most definitely.
Let's try and make sure that we keep these conversations going, because you inspire me. I'm delighted with what you're doing, Naomi. God bless you for what you're doing, and for everybody else out there. And thank you for listening to me. And now, you see, it's only, I don't know, 11 o'clock here in the morning, and it's really sunny, and I'm about to go and do some planting.
Oh, well done. That's fantastic.
Incredible. Pam, it's 8 o'clock
we will
here.
Definitely have another conversation soon. Over to you, Julia. Sorry.
Thanks, Naomi. No problem. I was going to say it's 8 o'clock here in Melbourne, and I feel so energized by what you've just said. I'm like, can I go outside? It's pissing down, but I'm feeling the energy. And I'm sure a lot of people here as well. So thank you so much. And big thank you to Naomi for coming on to facilitate and let us hear this discussion. That was fantastic. So yeah, as Naomi mentioned,
my pleasure.
It's Urban Agriculture Month, the first ever. So we ask you guys to visit our website, uaf.org.au, to check out other events that are going on. We've got a week left in April, so definitely see what's going on in your local area. Thursday marks the start of our Urban Agriculture Forum, running over 3 days. Tickets are on sale until tomorrow night at 8 p.m. So definitely head to that website again to buy yourself a ticket. And we've got one final evening webinar tomorrow night. We're joined with some more international perspectives. We'll have Natalie Keane from Norway, Maren Leyden representing the UK, and the Orchard Project. I don't know if you know that one, Pam, yes?
Yeah, very good.
And Pablo Ermini from Argentina. So be sure to check out, I think, our Facebook. That's another free webinar tomorrow. And lastly, you can support Sustain's work by becoming a member. I'll pop all these links into the chat now. And with that, we finish up. So thank you again, Naomi and Pam. Fantastic to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's keep this conversation and relationship going.
That was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Loads of love, Naomi.
Right. And to you,
and thank you, Julia. Thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Heaves. Fantastic work, Naomi.
Thanks, guys.
Well done, Naomi. Yeah, that couldn't have been easy, but that was...
No, it was actually, I'm feeling a bit teary right now, I can tell you, but no, that's something I really wanted to do for Nanny. Yeah, she's been
You did her proud.
my gardening inspiration in life. So, and I couldn't have thought of anything better than having a conversation with Pam. George was texting me earlier and I just let her know. And she's like, oh, do we need to you know, if you need to change tonight? And I'm like, no, I need to do tonight. That's important. Yeah. So if it had been anyone other than Pam for the conversation, I probably would have had to pull out, I have to tell you. But isn't she amazing?
Oh my gosh.
I was hoping she would have stayed on. I should have told her at the start to stay on at the end. But
yeah,
isn't she an inspiration?
Incredible.
Yeah, and I think we should have another conversation with her another time.
Nick, she just offered it. I've said to her before, I want her and Costa to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine that?
The energy.
Can you imagine that?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, like, that's the next level.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. What about an edible garden odyssey in Todmorden? Have one of his and have a tour of Todmorden with Costa. What about that?
Perfect. Costa would love it.
She'd love it because she'd get to kind of like give people a tour of the town, the village, and projects and meet people.
We'll just have to promote it as like the half-day odyssey, because between Costa and Pam, there's no way we can condense that into an hour. Even visiting one garden, it'd just be impossible.
So true.
Yeah, no, let's have to plant the seed with Costa, and take a little bit of time to organise. But I reckon that'd be a great thing to do.
Yeah, and look, Pam and I have been having more and more regular conversations. She loves the cross-world connection and thinks it's really important. And I really believe it's really important as well. And she's got as much energy as Costa. I find her, she's like the English Costa. I've said that to her before, actually. I'm like, you just remind me so much of him. And I've sent her a couple of links to a couple of our odysseys. I don't know if she's seen them actually, but I think she's another really powerful advocate for this space. So
absolutely.
And she's really wants to keep the conversation happening. So she loves having a chat, which is wonderful. Fantastic. So we'll keep that going.
Yeah, great.
Right. Well, thank you guys.
Let you get back to your family and
go back to the mob and all good, all good.
Thursday night.
Look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday. Yeah, it'll be really lovely.
It'll be great.
We'll see you. Yeah, we'll see. You'll be there at the start on Thursday as well.
Thursday night at the dinner.
At the dinner, but during the day, are you going to join us for the start of the?
I've got probably not, Nick. No, we've got a couple of our gang flying in, and I've got to go out to Glenjuna to meet with Trent out there. So don't think I'm going to make it to you guys. Where are you going to be before the dinner? What time does the dinner start? Sorry, I don't even know.
7 o'clock.
7?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, we'll probably be free from about 4-ish. So will you still be at George's place then, or?
I'm not sure. I probably won't be doing it from George's. If I want to overload our internet, I'll probably do it from William Angliss just because there's a more secure connection and better sound for me. So
I think she'll be heading out by that time, Naomi. I think maybe she's planning on getting to the venue at 5 at least.
So would you like us to rock up a bit earlier and help set up and stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just confirm that with George.
If you want to have a bit of a authentic Melbourne urban ag experience, depending on what time you're free, I'm going to pick up some gifts for our speakers at a fantastic, unique 7-acre property in Keilor East. So it's on the way to the airport, but it's run by this amazing Italian couple. It's called Rose Creek Estate. and they're from Calabria.
Oh yeah, I know. Oh, I've read all about them. Yeah.
Just beautiful couple, and they make the best olive oil. If you're into olive oil, they've just got the first harvest of this new season of the olive oil. They're just pressing it now, and they're just it's just an amazing garden. It's just you'd love it. It's just a
I've seen photos. Yeah, I'd love to. Where about? When are you going to be going there?
Well,
what time?
I'm going to go Thursday afternoon to pick up the gifts and get the oil. So probably I was going to go out sort of like around 3ish, but I could make it a little bit later if you wouldn't be able to get there before 4 o'clock.
How far is Keilor from the airport?
We
got one of our guys is landing at 3:40.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, you could pick him up and come back that way. Probably about 20 minutes from the airport, I would think. Maybe, yeah, it's not far. I can send you the address. It's not far. Have you been there, Julia?
So if we went there to meet you, we could get a taxi to come and meet us. Yeah? If it could be 4 o'clock, we'd love to come to that.
Okay, well, I can send you the address, and I'll tell Rosa that I'll be there around 4 o'clock, and yeah, just, I'll have my car, which is seats 4 people. So I don't know how many.
Yeah, and I'll have my car, which maybe I might have had a chance to clean because that was today's job, which didn't happen, but doesn't matter. It's got territory plates on it. It looks better when it's dirty, I think. But, I've got room for 5 in mine as well. So no, that's fine. We'll have our own transport as well. So
yeah, all right.
Yeah, okay. No, well, that'd be wonderful.
Well, it's just
and then we'll probably go and park our cars. We were going to get a taxi to the venue so we can have a couple of drinks and not have to worry about it. So
sure.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
All right. No, that'd be really lovely, Nick. I'd love to see that place. I was only just reading about it again recently. I'm like, I want to go here. It's magnificent.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful place. That'll be great. And yeah, you'll love Lena and Tony, and she'll give you a big walk around their property and see everything they've got planted. They've got some amazing plants, and it's a little piece of Calabria that they've created in East Keilor.
It's like 7 acres or something. Is that about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, no, that'd be a real honour. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Wonderful.
Put you in a good mood for dinner, for sure.
Definitely. Oh, no, fantastic. All right. No, well, yeah, send us the address, and there'll be, I couldn't tell you exactly how many of us there'd be, but probably only about 4.
Okay, that's good.
I think.
Yeah,
for that.
Good. Yeah.
There's a couple are coming separately in their own way. So, yeah.
All right. I'll send you a text, and let's say 4 o'clock on Thursday.
That'd be great.
All right.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right.